Sue Council. Do you want to start with the public hearing? Mike, if you don't mind standing at the podium, we're going to do the public hearing first. And Mike is our assessor. Mike Dunham is here. He's our assessor.
Notice of public hearing. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Town Board of the Town of Rosendale on December 5, 2012, 7:30 p.m. local time at the Rosendale Community Center, Route 32, Rosendale, Ulster County, New York, to hear all interested persons on a proposed local law entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 63, Taxation of the Code of the Town of Rosendale Regarding Tax Exemptions. Please take further notice that copies of said proposed law are available for review at Town Hall, 424 Main Street, Rosendale, during normal business hours. By order of the Town of Rosendale Town Board, November 14, 2012, Joan Jordan, Town Clerk.
Does anyone have any questions about the local law that we're proposing? Our assessor's here, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask him.
Gene, perhaps Mike can just give an overview of the proposed local law. I know you sent us a breakdown, Mike, and I thought it was pretty decent as far as laying out, what our intent was or is. And
That might have been in last week's packet, right?
it was.
Yeah.
It was in last month's packet.
There are 4 different laws that are being addressed in this local law. One involves the alternative war veterans exemption, which is an exemption that's granted to any veteran who served during a wartime period as defined by law, state and federal law. The local law, in essence, is increasing the maximum amount allowed for somebody who served as a veteran during any period of war to $36,000. If somebody served in a combat zone as defined by law, the maximum amount allowed by law is going up, maximum amount up to $24,000, and then if a disabled veteran was disabled during the military, then the exemption amount would increase, assessed value exemption amount would increase back to $120,000. These exemption levels, the county actually recently adopted these maximum amounts, which is why I brought it to the attention of the town board that they might want to consider raising the exemption amounts. The Cold War veteran exemption, which is any property owner who served in the military during any period, whether it was wartime or not, they would be eligible for a Cold War vet. So if they didn't serve during a wartime period as defined by law, then there's a Cold War vet which would cover anybody else. And this local law is proposing to increase that amount from the current $12,000 to the maximum amount of $36,000. The third law is the low-income disability exemption, which is granted for property owners who have low income below a certain amount and are physically disabled. The maximum amount allowed by law is at $37,400, where you would get 5% off as a sliding scale, down to, if you get less than $29,000, it would be 50% off. And then the last is the exemption for senior citizens, which is anybody over 65, and the income levels on that, as proposed, are actually the same as the disability, the $37,400. If property owner is at that amount, they get 5%, down to 29, less than 29, they get 50% off. Those are the four exemptions that are covered in the law that's being proposed tonight.
So Mike, in essence, what we're doing here tonight is presenting a law that follows the county law, which updates the existing exemptions, or enhances the
Right,
existing
it's
exemptions.
basically increasing each of the exemptions to the maximum amount allowed by law.
And when we spoke about this, I had asked if you could do an analysis as to the effect and
Right.
impact on the taxpayers, and I think you had said to the board that it would be negligible, so could we talk
Right.
about that?
Well, the senior citizen exemption, the increase to a non-senior citizen total tax will be $6 a year. Low-income exemption that was adopted would result in an increase of $1 per person property. Those property owners that are receive an increase of $1 or less, actually less than $1. Cold War vet would be a result of less than $1 also. And the veterans exemption would be an impact of less than $2. So combined, if you take all four laws, you're looking at a $10 increase per a property owner who may not be receiving any of these exemptions. Total taxes for the year.
Do you have any other questions?
Sorry?
Do you have any other questions?
No, I just, I'd like to spur some questions, so just the general public knows exactly what we're trying to do here. And, I think anything that any municipality can do to thank our veterans for the service they've given to the country is worth doing. And we can see that if we go with this route, it's going to have a negligible effect on all of our taxpayers, us non-veterans. As far as our senior citizens, the intent of the law is to give our senior citizens a break, hopefully make it possible for our seniors to stay here in town and live out their golden years rather than having to sell their house and go somewhere more affordable. This exemption, or the added exemption, it's going to be small, but I think anything that we can do for the affected groups that we're talking about here is not only good, but it's warranted. And we have an obligation to put it before you for comment.
Yes, do you have any question?
My question is, how do people find out if they're eligible? I understand how it works with STAR, but is that sort of somehow the assessor's responsibility or the citizens?
Well,
I'm just wondering how hard we
Well, the
have.
property owners that are currently receiving the exemption now, I'm actually started processing exemptions. I would hold on to those exemptions and not process them until they, until you pass the local law. And also, we recently had the enhanced, property owners were approved by the state for the enhanced STAR exemption.
Yeah.
And I actually sent them letters informing them, you've been approved for the enhanced STAR, but because the county and the town is considering, I sent them letters already letting them know, and I've already had a couple people that have come in that would qualify for this exemption, because the county, they would also qualify for the town. So I've sent letters, and, once the law is adopted, I will, issue press release, As far as the veterans, if they're getting the exemption, already getting the exemption now, it would just be a matter of programmatically changing it in the computer. A veteran wouldn't have to do anything to get it already. The exemption is, people are getting exemption now, they can just get more of an exemption, and that would be done automatically.
I guess I'm particularly thinking about when people turn 65, they may not know that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is a problem, because normally, we like I said, I issue press releases each year, probably early in the year, letting property owners, if you're going to turn 65, for the enhanced start, if you're going to turn 65 between that, by the end of next year, you should come in by March 1st. So, and unfortunately, we don't have a database that we can go and capture that information and let, where we can get that information. So it's coming up on us to put it on the town website, press releases to let people know. If you're going to turn 65, especially for the enhanced start, they might think, okay, well, March 1st, I'm 64, but if you're going to turn 65 anytime during 2013, they have to come in before March 1st and apply for the enhanced start.
What kind of paperwork will they need, Mike? Because veterans is easy, your DD 214
Right.
and your rating sheet for disabled veterans, but what do they do? What kind of paperwork do you need for 65?
Well, for the senior citizen, we need a proof of, your birth certificate, driver's license with their date of birth, and then a copy of their income tax, if they file, a copy of the 1099 they received for 2011.
I'm just going to suggest that maybe you can get together with Jill once this law has been passed, so that you can kind of like give her some bullet things to put down, and we can make like a little bit of a news release about it, so that maybe on the website, we can have a little bit more information for the public to be aware. Anybody have any questions? Okay, we're going to keep the public hearing open and do some other business.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Earlier in the year, we had a public hearing for the local law amending Chapter 75 of the Code of Rosendale regarding the exploration and extraction of natural gas and petroleum products. I'd like to make a motion to close that public hearing.
I'll second.
I would just also like to tell the board that there was a small change made based on the recommendations of the planning board, Dave Plant, who was a Bergman, and Mary Lou Christiana, who's our attorney, which basically was just to add the definition of petroleum products in the law. And that is the only comment that was acted on.
Excuse me. Roll vote. Councilman Gallagher?
I will abstain.
Councilwoman Green?
Yes.
Councilman Hassett?
Yes.
Councilman Ryan?
Yes.
Supervisor?
Yes. Is Tom Lewis here?
Yes.
Tom is our next speaker.
Thank you. My name's Tom Lewis from Kerhonkson, New York. I came to you several months ago talking about an indoor aquatic facility that we have a desire to build. We've been working several months on it, and as we got to the feasibility study stage, we ran into some roadblocks, financial roadblocks, and we've made a decision, which I'd kind of like to read a prepared statement, if you will. As you know, the Valley Community Aquatics Board has been trying to proceed with its efforts in building a new indoor aquatic facility somewhere on the 209 corridor. We have been working on this for several months. We recognize the concerted effort of all those involved in our swim community, and we applaud the ambitions of the various townships heading up their own projects in our area. However, we have determined that to support our project, there would be certain conflicts. Therefore, the Valley Community Aquatics Board has decided to fall back and realign our project timeline. It is a great honor to share our passion for swimming with our neighboring communities, and we wish you much success with your future endeavors. We don't have a lot of money, okay, which is one of the biggest roadblocks we come up with the feasibility study. It costs several $1,000s to get it up and going. We're not going to let go of this dream and/or idea because we think it's great for the communities. And when I say communities, I'm talking from south of Ellenville, to north of Marbletown, and east and west, all of us. We're all one big community, regardless of politics. So we're not going to let this go, okay? But we have to let it go for now. You guys have a certain need, okay? We have a want, and needs outweigh the wants is really what we decided. So what we do have is we'd like to, I think Mr. Hassett, you're the liaison?
Yes.
Okay. I have a check from Valley Community Aquatics, small donation towards the Rosendale Pool Fund. And if there's anything that we can do on our end, we've been in contact with several different people regarding the construction phase. If we can help in any way, we extend ourselves to the Rosendale Town Board and its community. Anything we can do, we'd be glad to help. And I want to thank you all for having me. Mr. Gallagher, thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Tom, thank you so
Thank you.
much. We do have a need, and that's for a new pool, and we're gonna get there someday, and you know, with our fundraisers and grant opportunities and things like this, we're gonna get there, and when we do, you know, if your dream hasn't come to fruition, you know that you're gonna have a place to come swim with your team too. So we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Don.
you.
Don.
Madam Supervisor?
Okay. Next, we have a couple of speakers. Annie Martinet is here, and you wanted to speak on the, recently there's been some public meetings and charrettes to basically pull ideas from the community on plans and ideas about what's going on with the Wallkill Valley Land Trust, Jopenberg Mountain, and I believe also Mohawks Preserve. During those meetings, some of the issues have come up about parking and what possible properties might be available or interested in being part of the plan. Because of those meetings, some of the issues have come to the surface, and a few people in the community would like to voice their concerns. I have received some letters and concerns, but we have a couple of residents that would like to talk about their concerns. So Annie, you're first, if you'd like to give it. Yeah. And please state your name and address, please.
Okay. Hello?
Is that on?
Probably, but I'm very tired. I'm Annie Martinet. I live at 175 Mountain Road, Rosendale. And as most of you know, I'm also the rural carrier for the post office for many of you. I'm actually here just to speak very specifically about one little piece of parking issue. And but first, just say that generally I'm thrilled that Jopenberg's happening and the rail trail is happening. And Rosendale really will be an awesome destination for people who like to be outdoors or just want to get a little exercise. You know, it's going to be wonderful. So my immediate little issue is that two things. When I deliver mail on Mountain Road, I often can't get to mailboxes, particularly from Jen's Hill, from the little hill down to Elting. When if I can, I stop and I ask the construction guys first, is this your vehicle? And it has never ever been their vehicles. They've been really good. And then I call the police and I read the plate, and the police have been wonderful, and I go about my business, and those people don't get mail that day. So this is happening about 2 times a week right now, and it's been going on for literally months, no, quite a few months. At first this happens around town. I just let it go by, but this has been a very consistent problem for months. So now I call it in, and let's see, the last time was Monday, and 2 cars were ticketed and towed. You cannot block mailboxes, and you don't want to irritate me. At that end of the road, it started to irritate me. The other reason it is a problem for me as a resident of Mountain Road is those of you who know the road and that intersection know that it's a really narrow road. From the whole 2 miles is really narrow. It's essentially a 1-lane, 1.5 lane road. There should be no parking on the road anywhere, except perhaps by special permit if someone has a big party or something, or the street festival. But that end of the road in particular is where I need fire trucks and ambulances to get up to my house or any place up on Mountain Road if need be. I would be extremely upset if it took 3-4 minutes longer, 5 minutes longer for a truck to have to go up Mossy Brook side to get to us because of the way cars are parked. This will become more and more of a problem, but it doesn't have to be. The problem being that people want to use the rail trail. I know there'll be a plan that eventually the town and Wallkill Valley Land Trust will work out for decent parking. There will be signs at the bottom of Mountain Road saying, not here, there. There may even be a sidewalk from up by the rail trail entrance, trailhead down to St. Peter's where there used to be a sidewalk. I think that would be wonderful. In the meantime, like I say, very short run, because of my issues with not being able to deliver mail, which is everybody's right to get, and also because of emergency vehicles having limited, I think, limited access, the more and more people that park there, I would sincerely request that the town simply post no parking signs, at least from 22 or Alameda's, maybe 27, someplace up there, all the way down to the end of Mountain Road, this end, and then also along the edges on that curve of Elting. There are people pulling around onto Elting and parking, and also blocking mailboxes up there, believe it or not. So I just think it has to happen. You need to put signs up. I don't really want to be making people having a bad day, but I'm going to keep doing it when I can't deliver mail.
Ms. Mornay,
Yes.
these cars who do they belong to? Are they?
I don't know. I haven't been keeping a track. I don't know who they are. Sometimes it's been out-of-state people, usually New York State license plates.
So it's probably residents, friends of residents
No.
on that road?
No,
She's
not
talking about
necessarily.
using the rail trail.
There are people using the rail trail, as far as I can tell. I don't know the police would know who, obviously, who owns these cars.
Yeah.
That's all. I just want you guys to post no parking at that end and around the edge on Elting there ASAP.
And we do have a process to go through in order to do something like that. I did talk to Christine DeBoer from Wallkill Valley Land Trust a few days ago, and they put a sign at the trailhead to let people know that are coming into the trail, that if they park along Mountain Road, that, you know, I don't know if you have the exact wording of the signs.
I posted it today, it said, do not park on the road. If you park there, you will be towed or ticketed and or towed. Please park in the town, and there's a small parking area across the street. I don't know how long the sign will stay up there, I have a huge problem with vandalism there, but I put them on at 3:45 today, because we spoke yesterday morning, had them laminated and attached them today, so.
I think there needs to be official signs that the town puts up.
Mhm.
It's not the rail trail's responsibility to post a public road, in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer. But
This was an immediate reaction to the situation, because the town has to go through more of a process than just say, we're going to put up signs.
So in the meantime,
So in the meantime, this is the first step, that
Okay.
we asked them to do that, because obviously
no, I
everybody
knew
agrees,
they were going to do that.
everybody
yeah.
agrees that the reason that people are parking there is to go to the rail trail.
As
So
far as I can tell.
if they parked and they see a sign as soon as they get to the trailhead that their car might be towed, you would hope they'd have the sense to go back and move their car.
People don't
So,
have a whole lot of
so
sense.
they're not gonna have any more sense. They're not gonna have any more sense if I put a town's parking sign, no parking sign, in the same spot where their car is. If they're not gonna pay attention to their sign, they're not gonna pay attention to the town sign. So they're either gonna be people that need to be alerted, and this is the good way to alert them, that this is an issue that they need to be aware of. And in the meantime, we can look into possible, finding out how we can get more signs along Mountain Road. But, what's that? I've had a conversation with Carl. I asked if he had any temporary signs that possibly we could put up, but we have to go through the process, so.
We don't have any temporary signs.
Right.
In order to make that a no parking area, the town's gonna have to do a resolution on it. I'm not a person that's in favor of putting signs in front of people's houses.
Oh, the people at the very end want a sign right
Okay,
there.
but
They wrote one of the letters that.
Yeah, we'd have to do a public hearing and everything, because it's obviously a public issue.
okay, I understand. The problem is the people parking on the roadway, like you said, it's a lane and a half wide. Sorry, your car gets towed, because you can't understand, you're not supposed to be parking on a public highway. I would like to see Christine get it on your internet, try to get the word out to the people that do, people talk, Jen's on there all the time, if she sees somebody, she can talk to people. And give it a week,
I think one of the misconceptions is, what I'm finding is that a lot of people will park, like if that's the mailbox, they'll park here, and they think that's okay. No, they get ticketed and
So
towed.
they're still in the.
I can't get in there.
Still on a public highway, which there should
Yeah.
be.
But there's more, the education thing is, it's more than I just think as many
Yeah,
signs as
but
we
we
can
can't
plaster up,
put,
the better.
we can't put a sign at every mailbox saying
No.
don't block mailboxes, so, you know, I mean, it really is important, I think, that people that are going to the trail, if that's where the public is coming from, it's not because somebody's grandmother came by to visit and there's no room in the driveway, you know, it's because people are going to the rail trail.
Probably, yeah.
So I think the key is, we've done the first step to put a sign there, let's see if we get any results from that. And if we don't, we need to consider putting other signs up. But I think it's gonna be more about putting signs at the beginning of the road, just, you know, as you're entering Mountain Road, to say, no parking on Mountain Road for the rail trail. I mean, that's the basic.
For any reason, really.
Right, but it's about I think it is about the trail, and so that's what the board has to discuss, about what they think is the right way to handle that. I mean,
Well, in the meantime, I do apologize, but I will, when I can't get to a mailbox, I will call it in. I have to.
yeah,
Um,
I would, you
People
know,
deserve to get, they have a right to the mail, I keep saying that. And it makes extra work for me, especially this time of year. It's a drag, so.
I mean, I totally understand your position. I would have liked to have seen people get a warning or some kind of
I was,
heads up.
the
because
reason I started calling
I
is-
have gotten just as many responses from the other side, you know, people that are coming here and, you know, I also don't want to see Rosendale as looked at as an unfriendly, unwelcoming place too. So-
But when I started, I said, this has been going on for months, and for a while, I just just let it.
Yeah, but this is the
go.
first
But-
we're hearing about it. You know,
Yeah, because I want signs up.
Yeah,
Because
I know.
think people need notice too, it would be nice, yeah. But it has been going on for quite some time, so.
Yeah, I'm not debating that, I understand, and I understand the frustration. It's just that I feel like if we had a little bit more notice, we could have started taking action a little bit sooner. I mean, it's unfortunate that it's become, you know, such an inconvenience for you now, that now everybody's gonna get towed immediately as soon as there's an issue.
Well, all I do is call the police, and they do whatever they decide. I don't tell them what to do, I just call and say, I can't get to this box again.
Jean, I just have a question.
Yes, Jim?
The parking, it's on the mailbox side of the road that you're concerned about, right?
Yeah, I only go
Because-
down the right-hand side.
Because like my side of the road has no mailboxes, but, you know, like in front of my house is probably the only place on Mountain Road that you can park. And I would like that to remain
Right.
available. I don't care if people from the rail trail park there, but I also like family to be able to.
Right.
So if you are gonna do signs, I could see doing it on the mailbox side of the road, but the other side of the road.
You know, my feeling is that there shouldn't be signs all the way up Mountain Road. I think you're just gonna have to have a sign at the entrance saying, if you're here to use the rail trail, don't block mailboxes, don't park along the road, you know, because you have to use the public parking area when we have designated the parking area for the trail, that's where they should be parking. That's the way I'd like, I mean, we'll talk about it some more, but obviously it's, I think by putting the sign at the trail head, I think Christine, when we talked, you said you were interested in putting a more permanent sign up there, right?
Yeah, I couldn't get a sign produced. We
Right.
spoke yesterday morning.
I know, and I
so
appreciate your,
printed something on yellow paper, laminated it, and the printing company didn't even have, the post office, they didn't have thick laminating, so it's thin laminating, so it's flapping in the air. I did the best I could for 24
right, it was an
hours.
immediate reaction.
But I
But
have it up there and it's still standing. I actually thought someone stole it, but it's still there. And so as long as it lasts, and I'll have a more permanent sign just telling people, but I mean, that's the best I can do on our property right there.
Yeah, but I do think that, you know, you've committed, is what I'm trying to say. You've committed to putting a better sign and a more permanent
Absolutely,
sign.
and I have a huge vandalism problem there, so I'm gonna order an extra and just have a spare, because my signs vanish, in usually about a 12-hour period, so
Yeah,
I'll do the best I can.
You know, one thing that might help, I'm sure a lot of these out-of-towners, they're getting their information off your website, right? Advertise it. If maybe you could put a notation on the website for that road going up, because if we get Jersey people and that, I'm sure that's where they're reading most about the rail trails on the website. So if you could put some comment within that, that might be a big help to it, for a starter anyway. I understand what you're saying,
Yeah, I mean,
but
the first step is to get the information out to the public.
That's why it just immediately, I mean, it's very,
Right.
it looks very tacky at the moment, but it's best I could do at the
Yeah.
moment, but yeah, so, and we'll get something on the website as well.
Great, thank you.
did you want to say anything else? No. Okay, I appreciate your input.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, somebody had a question?
No, I was just going to say, in general, the rail trail has the obligation to, patrol and to make sure that people aren't illegally parking on their land. And, this is something that's only going to become a chronic problem for the town of Rosendale.
Could you please say your name and where you live, please?
Sure. My name is Chris Fuller. I'm from the town of New Paltz, and we see this all the time. I mean, for instance, you might think that right now it might be a rail trail problem, but what happens when people are actually trying to park in these areas for connectivity purposes to, for instance, the Mohan Preserve? In New Paltz, we have a road called Pine Road, and Pine Road is now designated on the Mohan Preserve map as being a designated parking area. Now, this area has it doesn't meet any of the criteria for an actual parking area for, any kind of, the widths of parking spaces and such. So, it's basically an area that Mohawk is designated on the map that is a town road as a parking area. And I can only see that this is going to be an issue in Rosendale, as this moves forward. So, I would just caution the town, to keep an eye on that. And, in terms of, the Wallkill Valley Land Trust, it would seem to me that it's the responsibility of this non-for-profit to post signage. These are non-taxpaying entities, and why is it the burden of the taxpayer to put up signage? That just, these signs are expensive, they need to be, at 200-foot intervals. It just seems like an incredible burden to place on the taxpayer.
Well, I think that we've already established that Wallkill Valley Land Trust is willing to put signs up, so I appreciate your input, and we are discussing. Did you want to say something, Nancy? Okay. And I know we have another speaker who also would like to talk about some of the plans that are going on with, that's Mary Craig.
On stage, this is the agenda. I'm Mary Craig. I live at 23 Wallkill Avenue in Tilston, and I would like to thank Annie Martinet and Mr. Ulrich for bringing up the subject that I'm here to talk about. I understand that at this point in time, nothing is written in stone, that there are several parking areas being looked at for parking lots for the rail trail. I live in Tilston Estates. Tilston Estates is a development, and there are approximately 150 homes. Two of my neighbors are here with me, the last two rows over here. And we have heard that there are considerations of parking areas behind the development in various possible locations. And again, we know that this is not a done deal. However, before it gets to a done deal, there are certain things we believe you really need to consider. First of all, it is a development. It's a residential area. And in this residential area are children. I've lived in this development for 42 years, and the one constant in this development is children. Some grow up and move away, more come in. When these children are here, they're playing. They're out in the street, they're in the road, they're riding their bicycles, they're walking their dogs. We have a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, which is still too fast. But that's one of our issues. Another issue is in the back, one of the areas that's being considered is near our water supply. Now, I don't expect that hikers or bikers are going to go in and wreck our water supply. However, as you mentioned, you have vandalism issues. This can open up vandalism issues for our water supply or the development's water supply. The other thing is we have one road coming into Tilston Estates. It's in and out. If a parking lot is to be accessed behind Tilston Estates and has to go in and out of that one road, you're increasing traffic on a very small spot. When there are buses, school buses coming in and out, we often have to stop. Even when they're moving, we have to stop to let them pass. So now you're going to bring in people who are from out of state, that aren't familiar with the area, that don't know the development, and that's going to cause a problem. The other thing is, I think in a town that is looking to build itself up and to maybe increase revenue, it would be better to consider parking areas nearer to the businesses in town. I know if I was going to this town and I was parking my car up in Tilson, and when I got back in my car, I'm not going to go down to Rosendale. I'm either going to go home to New Paltz or home to Kingston or wherever, and that's where I'm going to stop to eat, and that's where I'm going to spend my money. So if you're thinking of revenue for the town, it seems to me the better place is something nearer to the town that they're going to go through or around, and more likely to stop and eat there. But to me, the bottom line for our development, and I think my neighbors will agree with me, our concern is we're a residential area with a lot of children, and I think it's a safety issue to put a parking lot anywhere near that development. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
I would like to say that the town, I don't think, I mean, I myself, I can't speak for the whole board, but it was never, and any of the town board members have never suggested or been interested in making that area a parking area. Hensley might want to speak on that, but just so you know, we're not in support of that being a parking area, so.
Yeah, and just to clarify the process, I think, anytime you ask for public input, you run the risk of doing one of two things. One, you either dismiss someone's idea and say, hey, that's a terrible idea, I don't want to hear it. Or if you allow everybody's ideas to be heard, you run the risk of having some ideas that really wouldn't be very practical. We tried to be very inclusive and allow people to make suggestions. And I think this is kind of where some of these are coming from. People threw out lots of suggestions, including parking on, private property that, as far as I know, the private property owner has absolutely no interest in providing us with access for parking. But we, wanted to hear everybody's, I think as we discussed kind of offline before the meeting, there's definitely some suggestions that were made that are impractical, and that I don't think, will be pursued by us or the town or anybody else. But I do appreciate the input, and we'll make sure that that gets integrated. Just as far as the process, some folks here were at the public meeting that we held, but HRVR, who's the consultant that we hired to help us kind of, put together all of this input into a consolidated report, owes us their final report and recommendations early next year. That will be, when it's finalized, it'll be posted on our website so people can see kind of what they thought rose to the top as the most practical solutions. And some of the things that they discussed were doing things like a traffic study to kind of make sure that what we do, takes into account the impact and the usage needs, et cetera. So we're by no means finished. And I do think that some of the issues or the suggestions that were brought up were less practical than others, but thanks a lot for the input.
You know what, I wanted to say one thing just for food for thought. Across from Randy Ritter's house, it used to be Randy Ritter's house, that pond, where the pond is.
Yeah.
If you go right across Springtown Road, there is a road that goes right straight back, that's all grown in. And all the way, right before you get the rail trail, was a large area, it's somewhat grown now. That would be perfect. Now, I don't know who owns the property or anything like that.
That's the problem.
But
Part of that is private property, and part of it's state property. We actually were trying to figure out who in the state owns it and what they're using it for. So that was one of the suggestions that was brought up. So it's one of the things we need to follow up on to find out and to contact the private property owner that it goes over that property. But yeah, I mean, also, if you don't already have Christy's contact information, if you do have suggestions, she can give you her email, and please do continue to feed us ideas, because it's definitely, still very much in process. So.
I just also want to I just want to be clear that this was a process that they put together, and the town is just one member of the public, basically, that's coming together to give their ideas. So I appreciate that you guys are here to voice your concerns, but I want you to understand that this is not something that came from town of Rosendale, okay? And that some of the people that looked at those They basically looked at a map and said, here's a blank spot, here's a blank spot, here's a blank spot, maybe there's parking in those spots. And really didn't, that's as far as they got. They really didn't look at where, so your input is very good because it shows how there's a blank spot, but it's not really a good spot for parking. So really the planners who are helping them really are just, taking public input where people are just pointing to certain areas and saying, here's a big area, maybe we can park here and let's explore that. So, and I appreciate that. Brian?
Just wanted to touch on this issue with regard to potentially parking, that parking area, which is the old Snyder Lime plant. It was something that was considered because there's lots of level land back there, but almost everybody that looked at it in terms of access from Tilson Estates knew immediately that that was a non-starter. I mean, it's not a good access. However, the space itself is a potentially fantastic location for parking. The access is not. Through Tilson Estates is a particularly good access. There are other potential ways of getting to that property, and if you can get to that property, it's a fantastic parking area. So I wouldn't rule out the parking area. I would certainly dismiss, at least that's what I did when I put my 2 cents in, accessing that parking area through Tilson Estates.
As past supervisor with that piece of property, that piece of property cost us huge liability. I would like that not even to be owned by the town of Rosendale, because if you make that area a parking area, the liability of what we have to do to protect the town, us as taxpayers, to protect us from that piece of property is enormous. It's already cost us a ton of money already.
That's where the kilns and quarries and
Absolutely.
everything are located.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we've already put chain link fence over the kilns because we faced a lawsuit in years past with regard to someone trespassing and falling into the kilns and then turning around and suing us.
And they still try to climb in.
Excuse me?
They still try to climb in.
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, the last, Carl, maybe you might know, but from what I understand, the chain link fence or the fencing we put over the kilns has been pretty much destroyed and vandalized? Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I heard. So, listen, for the purpose of going forward, Wallkill Valley Land Trust is a fact. The trestle is a fact. Jocklenburg Mountain is a fact. It's going to happen. We have an obligation as a town to work with this group to make sure that the best possible scenario can exist, in that we can get the people into the town, we have a place to properly put them, and hopefully the byproduct of that is that they're going to spend money in our town, and we're all going to be better off for it. So it's definitely a work in progress. I'm glad that the group from Tilson Estates came down tonight. I hope that you walk out tonight with the thought that that's kind of off, as far as I'm concerned, that's off the board, as far as, parking with regard to the access. Brian, he's right, it would ultimately make a good parking area, but there's other considerations too. The proximity to the kilns, the liability that comes with that, and then to the Tilson Estates people, the fact that it's in very close proximity to your water source. And since the year 2000, and Homeland Security and all that, there are stringent rules with regard to public water sources, specifically our reservoir and all things like that. There cannot be any access. We would love to be able to give access to the reservoir, like I grew up on the reservoir, fishing and sometimes swimming, but that can't happen anymore. And I think that's a valid concern for the Tilson Estates people, in light of the fact that, Christine's already said that there's been some vandalism. Not to say that that's going to, automatically come with it, but it's something to consider. We need to plan effectively and plan smartly, and we will get there. We will get there, and I think at the end of the day, we're going to be better off for it. So.
Thanks, Ken. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, thank you. I'm Pete Palmer. I live at 22 Elm Street. I own the property that is bisected, that the right-of-way bisected, goes back to the back. And I'm very glad to hear that the town isn't interested in developing that, because over the years, I've been there 28 years, there's been more accidents down there than you even know. I've had people come to my back door, somebody's fallen down the kilns, and, but a new problem now is, over the past couple of years, there's been people coming into the estates and parking along Elm Street, blocking mailboxes there, actually, along Elm Street, blocking driveways, you know, and I try to shoo people away and tell them that they can't park there. But
Is it mostly in the road that goes through your property, or is it
no,
on, it's on the
it's
property?
there, I've had to
Yeah.
shoo people out of there, but it's also on Elm Street in front of houses.
Yeah.
And they're walking down.
Oh, they're always walking. I mean, you know, the people in the neighborhood walk down, they take their dogs down, they ride their bikes down. I don't mind that. I don't think the town minds
I
that.
mean, the people that are parking the cars are going down.
Yeah, with bikes. A big thing is camping. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. I chase people out all the time. But if that, I mean, we've been trying to keep people off that land for so long because of, you know, the woods have been set on fire. You probably remember that. You know, just all kinds of stuff down there.
Try to get out once a year or so and trim it up. So
That's
it's-
great.
yeah, because-
That's great. But, you know, just something else to be aware, people are coming in already and parking.
We actually had a website up for paintball wars using this property.
I think that, you know, right now what's happening is there's, you know, already some public awareness that this trestle is going to be there, and so you're starting to get more people. So I think we really need to, we've talked and we're going to, you know, try to get aggressive now about coming up with a plan, and parking is one of them. And as I've said since the beginning, the town really needs to work closely with Wallkill Valley Land Trust to make sure that all these issues get resolved before they open the trestle. So, you know, we've had our conversations, and I think just remember that this is all, you know, this is nothing that you've seen in their charrettes is a done deal. So it's all about just giving the public an opportunity to express themselves, and just like you guys are doing tonight. So, yes, Sue.
Okay. My name is Sue Boyce-Wick. I'm a former Rosendale resident for 20-some years. I now live in St. Remy. I'm here this evening representing the Cater Boys that have property at the end of Hillcrest Lane. And they've owned property at the end of Hillcrest Lane, that family, for, since 1701. And they asked me to relay a couple of things. They would prefer not to have a parking lot on Hillcrest Lane. We know many years ago there had been talk about expanding the Sunrise Hillcrest into a bigger motel, and it came down to the thing that Mountain Road would need to be one way if that were to happen, and which way would it go? So, you know, it really can't take a bunch of traffic up there. They also asked me if the Wallkill Valley Land Trust has a policy or procedure in place for addressing neighbors' complaints involving the rail trail. It's been experienced with other entities, such as the Mohunk Preserve, prime example for us. If you have an unresolved complaint with people coming onto your property from the preserve or something, or other issues with the preserve, you can go to staff, and they blow you off. You want to go to a board meeting and address the board? Not a chance. 12 years we've been trying to get a meeting with the Mohunk Reserve Board to discuss some issues we have about water quality and things like that. So I think that needs to be taken care of. And Harry, I have a question for you. How many rail trail calls a month do you get?
Well, I'm not aware of vandalism issue that, unless something's gone past my desk that I haven't seen.
I find that would be hard to believe for me. Anything got past you, sorry.
Right now, I have, I would have to look because the total isn't enough that it jumps out at me right now.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have major issues. I mean, hearing everybody, I'm Perry Solon,
Yes.
I'm the police chief, I'm your police chief. So, I think that, and I don't want to belabor the issue of the parking and all of that, but it's just fair that I'll give you my 2 cents. All of these are very valid points, because if we do have an influx of people here, where are we going to put them? hard thing is like by Mr. Palmer's, where he lives, a patrolman will be patrolling the area. The difficult thing, is it someone visiting Mr. Palmer because it's his birthday, or is it somebody who's on the rail trail? So it becomes difficult for us, as we say, we can't park on the road because it's against the law. But then on Monday, I get the phone calls that say, well, geez, it's Mr. Palmer. I had my grandchildren here visiting, and now all their cars were ticketed. And not to pick on you, Mr. Palmer, but it was a perfect example. So I hear you, I want to help you, and I want to do things, but we got to really mold this in a very careful way, because I don't want to over-enforce something that doesn't need to be over-enforced, but I want to make sure that everybody's getting what they deserve, and all of that. As far as the complaints, I don't have a lot of complaints now, and if we do, I think the last one that jumps out to me was there was a gentleman on the rail trail that was causing some issues with some females. I know I had a fire on the bridge at some point, I don't remember the date. But again, if I need to be aware of everything that happens out there by a phone call or an email even, just so I can have someone look at that. Again, so I certainly will do what I can to help make this happen within the community, because I want to enjoy it with my family just like everybody else's. But we have to take very cautious steps, because I don't want to get everybody mad at me trying to help them.
Is there a number that can be called to get Rosendale somehow on weekends? Because I used to call and it would go to the state troopers or the sheriff or something.
The sheriffs. Listen, here's the easiest thing. If you have an emergency, obviously we know we dial 911. If you don't, there's on the website is my email, and there's also the 658-3048. Leave me a voicemail. So when I come in, I'll get it, I'll email you, I'll call you back. But if it's something that needs addressing right then call the 9000 number. If no one's in the office, the sheriff's office will pick up the phone and send a car out. But that's the nice thing about email is we get it pretty quickly, and I can throw you an answer back.
Just to comment on the comment that Christine made about vandalism is mostly had to do with the fence that we put up while the construction's been going on in the trestle. And I think kids that pull the fence out and want to go out on the trestle anyway, and we repaired the fence. I think we've talked a couple times about that, but that's really been what we've experienced there, has really been, I think, I'm going to make an assumption, but I think kids, screwing with the fence to get out on the trestle.
Well, I just want to make sure that we don't have major issues that
No,
I'm
You guys
aware
were
of.
great. I know you're doing a big investigation with that trash dump that we had, and that was great, and it's been wonderful. But I have kids, they take apart the bolts of my fence, so we welded them on, and they unraveled the fence, so we wrapped it back on. Just every 3 days, it's a new adventure, but yeah.
Okay, all right, thank
Thanks,
you.
Karen.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, I think, yes, Tim?
The DEC has a huge number of trails in the Catskills. And every trailhead is some form of parking in the towns of Denning, Shandaken, and they have very similar problems to what we have. It may be interesting to see how those various towns have handled people parking outside of the parking areas for the DEC trailheads. Because we're going to have more and more people using the rail trail, and we have a finite amount of parking. And so we ought to understand how to handle it. And having hiked on every trail in the Catskills, we know that there are some places where cars are parked in people's front yards on busy weekends. And so it would be interesting to see how people like Denny and Shandaken handle these things.
Well, a lot of it has to do with our geography here in town. We got a mountain on the south side, we got a hill. I mean,
Have you ever been in Denny?
Denny's got a lot more room than we do here, if you look at.
No, they really don't. If you've ever been there, everything is either up or down, or it's on a street. There are, and the number of roads they have are almost non-existent. There are five roads, so.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, but I think it's very clear that we are identifying every possible place that might be a possible parking area. That's why this came up. And we're looking at what, we've talked about the trailheads, we've talked about the different areas that the town owns. and we're gonna try to figure out how to make some of those available for parking for the trestle, for the trail. And with the proper signage and, you know, an agreement, we'll figure this out. But, you know, I think everyone's open to more input, any input. But we have to work with what we have. So, you know, we're the town of Rosendale, and we have to figure out what does Rosendale have and where can we make it work. So, yes.
Just a very quick question. When do you anticipate the trestle actually being open?
It's a good question. So we still have a fair amount of fundraising to do to pay for the purchase of the decking materials and the installation. But quite honestly, we're not rushing to do that because we need to resolve the access issues before we open it up and create a really big mess. So,
Not soon, not this winter?
no, not this winter, definitely not. And we had originally, you know, suggested sometime in the spring, but I think it's going to be partly dependent on how long it takes to make sure that we have a good solution in place for parking and access.
I would just like to say that we're definitely interested in making sure that all these things are resolved before the trestle. I mean, as a town, you know, we can't tell them not to, but we're going to strongly suggest that they don't open it until we have all the parking issues resolved.
And we don't want it to be a
Yeah,
bad
I think-
experience for people either. I mean,
Right.
I think it's not in anybody's best
Right.
interest. The towns, you know,
Right.
I live off of Mountain Road myself, so
Yeah.
I don't want to create a big problem either.
All right, well, I'm going to move on here. I think we should close the public hearing. Make a motion to close the public hearing for the tax exemptions.
I'll second.
Roll vote. Councilman Gallagher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Green?
Yes.
Councilman Hassel?
Yes.
Councilman Ryan?
Yes.
Supervisor?
Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
So why the Wallkill Valley Land Trust is here, I just want to bring up, and maybe you guys can help me out with this. They're applying for a grant to make connectivity from the trestle to town through the Hardenberg Park, up, what is that road? Fairview Avenue, across the Peter and into town. And I'm just asking the board to help me in writing a letter of support to them. So I'm making a motion to authorize the supervisor to write a letter of support for the grant that the Wallkill Valley Land Trust is applying for.
I second that.
Roll vote. Councilman Gallagher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Green? Yes. Councilman Hassett?
Yes.
Councilman Ryan?
Yes.
Supervisor?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Al Wagner is here from the Scenic Byway, and he's here to talk about a guide that they've put together and some other things. Al?
Yeah, this is, the Scenic Views Guide is presented by the Shiloh Mountains Regional Partnership. It's a partnership that grew out of the development of the Shiloh Mountains Scenic Byway, which is, many people are not aware, it's the only state-designated scenic byway in the Hudson River Valley. This is an intermunicipal partnership with the 9 towns and 2 villages in the Rosendale and Wallkill valleys that encircle the Shiloh Mountains. Your supervisor is presently representing the town on our board of representatives. Bob did when he was supervisor, and Patrick did when he was, and so on. The funding for the Scenic Resources Guide came from federal and state sources and is administered by the town of Schaumburg. The guide is an organization of ideas which will help planning boards in working with applicants to accommodate development while still preserving the scenic beauty and unique character of the towns and villages in the Shining Mountains region. The guide draws on the knowledge and experience of our regional board, Billy and the other chairpersons, and in some cases members of the planning boards, the landscape architecture firm of Landworks in Middlebury, Vermont, Ulster County Planning Director Dennis Doyle, Dan Whitehead, who is acting regional permit administrator of the DEC, Laura Heady, our biodiversity outreach coordinator, and others, including my own experiences in working as a landscape consultant with the planning board. While the guide will be very useful to elected boards, zoning boards, and certainly developers, it is designed to fulfill the needs in particular of planning boards. In New York, the process that planning boards follow is influenced greatly by seeker, and the guide is organized to work in parallel with seeker. The guide starts off on page 11, if you'd like to follow with me, with a discussion of what is a scenic resource, and describes the three categories of resources: federal and state designated resources, such as our 88-mile scenic byway; town and village designated resources, where you may have or want to, through an official process, specify particular resources which are important to your town; or three non-designated resources, scenic resources that are important to your town but not officially designated. On page 13 starts the next section of the guide on visualization assessment tools. This explains how various tools may be used by planning boards to anticipate the visual impact of proposed projects, such as viewshed analysis, balloon tests, visual or photorealistic simulations, and others. And we're planning on having a training program on this for planning board members sometime over the winter that will just deal with this particular technical aspect of scenic planning. On page 19, the guide then introduces the concept of landscape patterns and presents 11 patterns of landscapes, the kind of landscapes in the Shining Mountains region, like farmland, forests, historic villages, and it lists issues and opportunities associated with each of the patterns for planning boards to consider. Recognizing these patterns is useful because starting on page 43, the guide discusses in a graphic manner the various planning and design concepts which may be employed to help a project be in harmony with its related patterns, like practices to maintain agricultural landscapes, developing along the natural contours of the land, the orientation of buildings, following precedent in scale and massing. So these practices are related to landscapes that where their consideration could be important in preserving the scenic view while there is development. In all, 32 categories of practices are discussed, with many ideas in each category, ideas that can be utilized to conserve the scenic quality of the appropriate landscape. At the back of the guide is a list of resources and references which may be helpful to planners, and also a glossary. The guide will soon be available on the partnership website, and we will have materials for your use on your website, so you can customize it for your town if you like, or use it just as it is. Each of the towns in the region has its own unique character, its own personality, and each also has its own way of doing things. So it is up to each to decide how to use the guide. But it is the hope of this partnership around the mountains that the guide will be used to accommodate development while still preserving the scenic resources of the region. After all, it is beautiful here. If I can help you with this, I'll be glad to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as someone who's on the planning board for nearly a decade, I can say that this is a very nice piece of work you've put together, and I think it'll be a help to our planners.
Do we have copies for all of our planners?
Yeah, and your environmental commission and your building inspector.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really good pictures too, Al.
Yeah, I want to thank you. I mean, it's
A lot of work, too.
a lot of work, and we're going back 6 years when I started working with you when we first started this, and congratulations to you. I mean, this is your puppy as much as it is everybody else's. So thank you.
And that brings us to another subject that Al's also involved in. Last year, we were due to renew a contract with the state for a grant that the town was to administer for the Scenic Byway. And we were not able to find any documentation on the board approving it, so we're doing a resolution to ratify the contract and give me permission to renew this application and spend some money to be able to keep this grant alive. It was $46,000, I believe. And approximately $4,000. One of the concerns that came up was I did not feel that the town of Rosendale had the funds to put out to, because you have to wait for the state to bring this grant money back. So Al reached out to John Volk from the town of Shawangunk, and they've agreed to escrow, give us $4,000 approximately that they've been using for funding for similar projects that they've completed, and we will put that money in escrow to be able to put money out while we're waiting for funds to come back from the state so that we have money to work with, and we won't put ourselves at risk by putting money out when we don't have it. So if, I don't know if the board has any other questions about this, but there's the email from Al here and the follow-up email from John Volk that basically he's already talked to his board and they've agreed to forward us those funds. And then the application is here for me to renew, and then the resolution to approve it.
Can you explain the $46,000 grant?
For the Scenic Byways.
It's for
All the towns.
It's for
It's for all the
promotion.
towns
It's for
that
tourism promotion
Right.
along Scenic Byway.
I guess my biggest concern is it got lost in the shuffle.
Basically, the contract was signed without a resolution, and we're trying to correct that.
For the deputy supervisor, you did.
Yes, Jen?
I don't know anything about it, but I have a question about what the money, what is it, how is it used? What is it used?
It's for, it was originally for kiosks. I don't know if they're continuing to use it for the kiosks, but for pull-off areas for along the that's true, Al? Is that still the plan? Or are you going to,
Let me say this.
Go ahead.
As a Scenic Byway, because it's a state designated Scenic Byway, we're eligible to apply for federal funds, basically to support the goals of the Byway, which are to promote tourism in the region, to preserve the resources that are here, and to improve our transportation. We've done, I think you may have heard in the paper, a big job with improving transportation with the grant we got for the scenic overlooks. I've just spoken about preserving resources. And this grant that town of Rosendale agreed to administer is for promoting the byway. It's the second phase of that promotion. The first phase was within the communities around the byway to inform residents and towns and businesses and everything that there is a scenic byway and what it is. That was phase one, and the town of Warsing administered that. This is phase two, which is outreach beyond just the towns and the residents to tell people about the resources in the region and to encourage people not just to go up on the mountains, but to go down into the different towns and see the other attractions we have, including the rail trail and including the restaurants and so on. I remember presenting to this board a program for that specifically. The idea was to have kiosks that would be manned by volunteers that would pass out literature. not only literature on the Byway, but literature on the different towns. So we have to rethink that. So we applied, we got money from the federal government for it, and matching funds from Senator Bonner, the last time that we could get funds that way. And we were late with our program because we were late getting the signs up. We had a lot of trouble getting the signs up. And not having Byway signs up is like having a store with no sign out front. People don't know what it is. So we did that. That took a while. And we're sorry there aren't more signs. But,
The signs are very nice.
yeah. Well, that's the DOT's. We're working on that. So the kiosks were to be booths and people could stop for information. We call them traveling. The idea was traveling visitor centers. The problem is nobody wants to spend their Saturday out there handing out liquor. The Round Valley Business Association worked hard to try to get people to come forward to do that, but it's not working. I think the way we can do it now is the cooperation of the preserves here. Minnewaska is very willing to hand out literature for us, providing it's not commercial literature. The Mohawk Preserve is willing to do the same, and Sam's Point is willing to do the same. So if people come here to go to the mountains, and if the mountains then can distribute literature that enable people to go back into the business areas, we achieve the same thing. Now, that's why this reauthorization by the town is really important, because then I can work with the DOT in changing the grant around, and we can start doing the work. So that's where it's at.
Yeah, and we have to do it before the end of this year so we can keep it.
Yeah, if they don't get some indication we're doing something fast, they're going to consider it.
Well, thank you very much for rescuing this grant for us and keeping it alive so we can act on it and don't lose those funds. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So, the resolution is 2012-1. This would still be, oh, you don't have that one?
Yeah, it's in the back.
It's there, it's in the back in the right side.
Oh, she should have it with the resolution.
It's second to last in the
It
text.
says resolution ratifying contract with Department of Transportation.
It's on the right side of the folder.
I still have a question.
Sure, John.
I don't know what we're doing. On here it says review, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have to do it now because we have a limited amount of time to take care of it.
First of all, you know that, I mean, I have the sense that the board is totally in support, and, you know, we've supported the work of the Scenic Byway for a long time. I'm just confused as to the relationship with Shongum and the reimbursement and the 4,000 and, you know, why wouldn't if the town of Shongum has money set aside, why, I'm not saying Rosendale shouldn't do it, it's just confusing to me, that relationship, and perhaps you just explained it, but I didn't understand.
I'm going to explain something.
Okay.
The town board never approved this grant, okay?
Yeah.
So the contract was signed. Now, the state comes back and says, you need to renew the contract, okay?
Right.
So the contract is with the town of Rosendale, it's not with the town of Shawangunk, okay? So in order for us to go forward to save this grant, the town of Rosendale is the one that has to administer the grant because it's already been signed by the previous supervisor.
And so the next step is the Shongum $4,000.
So what happened was, I said, the town of Rosendale doesn't have the money to put out to support this. I talked to Al early in the year and said, we don't have the funds to.
Yeah.
Okay, so he reached out to John Volk, who's the supervisor at Shawangunk, to say, you know, that he's the president of the whole.
I think I can help on that. When we did our corridor management plan, we submitted it in a competition to the Patents for Progress, the organization, and they got other plans. And our plan was awarded a prize for the most innovative plan. prize of $4,000.
And Shawangunk is.
It went to the town of Shawangunk.
Right.
Yeah.
They put it aside. And
They
we didn't-
kept it in
We didn't spend
escrow.
it, we banked it, all right? So, when your supervisor said to me, we can't play bank here for this
Yeah.
amount of money. So I said to John, look, instead of leaving the money there in your bank, let it go to in Rosendale's bank, and they can use it to bridge the time
Because
between.
it's really for the project anyway. It's
That's
for
right.
the project.
It's-
It's not
they're the same-
Shawangunk
No, it's not
money.
Shawangunk.
They're the same purposes. They're the same
So
purpose.
we're not submitting bills to them and they're
No, no.
paying
No,
it.
no,
They're
no.
gonna
They're gonna-
transfer it to
That's
us
right.
They're-
dedicated for the project.
That's right.
Okay.
It'll be in an
That's all I
escrow
needed to
account.
understand.
It'll
Yeah,
be,
I can
it'll
see
be,
why you're-
Rosendale will have that as escrow to work for this.
Because sometimes there is
Okay.
a delay
Yeah.
between when
Yeah.
the town pays the invoice, then it goes to DOT, and it can be there for a while.
Got
So,
it.
so this will bridge you over so the town won't be short on cash while that's happening.
I read it, but I didn't understand.
You're
until
right.
just-
I'm sorry, because it is a lot, it's very complicated, and we've been, Al and I have been talking about it so much that we forget that everybody else doesn't know all the
Thank you.
details of it.
That's absolutely fine.
Okay, so, resolution ratifying contract with Department of Transportation and authorizing the supervisor to execute the necessary documentation for extension of same. Whereas the former town supervisor signed a contract with New York State Department of Transportation known as DOT contract number C032440 for Shawangunk Mountain Scenic Byway Traveling Visitors Centers project. And whereas the town records do not show approval of same by the town board. And whereas the time period for said contract expired on April 1st, 2012. And whereas the Department of Transportation has afforded the town of Rosendale the opportunity to extend the time for completion of the contract until April 1st, 2013. And whereas the town of Shawangunk will be closing out funds that have been held in escrow for the scenic byways and transferring them to the town of Rosendale to be put in the town of Rosendale Trust and Agency escrow account and used as a cash flow fund for the time it takes to get reimbursement under the grant that the town of Rosendale is administering. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Rosendale ratifies the above referenced contract and authorizes the supervisor to execute all documentation necessary to extend time for completion of said contract until April 1st, 2013.
I will second it. Now that I understand it.
Gene, before we vote, Al, can I just ask you, do you recall when this first came to fruition, you had conversation with the previous supervisor, did he indicate that it went before the board and was approved and you thought everything was good moving forward?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not that familiar with town procedures.
Right. But as far as your perspective, you were told that this was properly handled and
And there was
signed?
an invoice already submitted to the DOT by the town and reimbursed by the DOT to the town. It was done last year. As I said, we were delayed in getting the program going. So at last year, about this time, we felt it was important to get an invoice there so that they would not break back funds. So at that time, it was done already. Yeah.
Okay. It concerns me that here we are, a year and change out, we're still dealing with issues of the last administration that, on a personal note, sitting here and hearing that this went down, and I sat on this board, and not once did this come before this board. Am I correct? Frustration coming out on me, but let's move forward. A year and change out, we're still dealing with the mess of the last administration. Let's vote it.
Councilman Gallagher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Green?
Yes, on the motion.
Councilman Hassett?
Yes.
Councilman Ryan?
Yes.
Supervisor?
Yes.
Thank you, Al.
Al,
Thank you very much.
Can
Thank
you
you.
give me a call either tomorrow or Friday so we can put something in place for the first, what we got to do before the end of the year?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Volker said thank you also.
I
Yes.
certainly will. Thank you.
The next, we have Perry Soul. Chief Perry? The chief's here to talk about purchase of a new vehicle.
I'll use up some of your time, so we're doing
You, good evening supervisor and members of the board, and again, our community. In front of you, I handed out a request for purchase in 2011, I budgeted it for the year 2012 to have the funds to purchase the car. We didn't purchase the car this year, just trying to make the car that I want to replace last through the end of the year, which we reached our goal. So it has come time to replace that vehicle. I'd like the board to pass a resolution next week to allow me to do that.
Have you thoroughly checked up in Tyler's that there was no car up there for you?
You want me to answer that?
Truthfully.
Are we trading yours in? That'll get traded?
What I do is once I have a new car in service, in years past, I get a hold of the superintendent of Byway's car, Hornbeck, and he puts it on the auction site. And generally, we end up with between $3,000 and $4,000. And the car that I have now is to replace is a 2006. Right now, it has approximately 130,000 miles.
6-1?
No, 364.
You should do pretty well on that. The used car market right now is getting unbelievable money, so you'll probably see more than 4,000.
I hope so.
I'm sure.
It would definitely offset the cost.
But considering what we used to get for trade-ins compared to what we've been getting on eBay, big difference, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the past, with used lease cars, they were basically considered junk, right, as far as the trade-in value.
How do we auction them off?
Carl?
Auctions International. It's a setup that's used by most municipalities in the state of New York, counties, all the counties in the state.
Couldn't we go public and use eBay for something like that, where we probably...
You could, but I've never seen
We've had some real...
too many highway, this is basically set up and they publicize it to different areas. And
Great.
we have a truck that I wouldn't have gave you $500 for, went to Kentucky for $3,000,
Excellent.
$3,200 2 years ago. So
Great.
it's going all over the country.
Don't change it if it isn't broke.
Nah, it's a good deal. You should be on there, the amount of stuff you buy.
As long as my wife's not
I'd like to order it tonight, but I know I can't until the resolution, so.
Perry, how does this fit into, this year's budget, or?
Okay, we got a little creative with the funds.
Okay, I just
We're
want to
gonna use
understand.
we're gonna use the money that was put aside for this year's budget.
Mhm.
So the purchase will happen in 2013 instead of 2012, January 2013. So we'll be able to then make the next payment in 2014, correct?
Correct.
And we'll be using a split budget from 2013 and 2014 to be able to do that. Okay.
Thank you. So it's going to be the same as in the past, the 2 years.
It'll be 2 years, but instead of it being 2012, it'll be 2013 because we're going to purchase the third. And then
You'll
we'll be roll over and be able to keep and then I'll be able to split the the next payment from the 2 years that way so we can make the payment. Correct? That's what
Correct.
we discussed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cora? Mr. Horvath?
You going to vote on this?
No, we're gonna do his next week.
I'm here basically for the same thing to,
Tyler's.
been there. With Post Brothers, we're looking to purchase a 2012 Ford F-350 pickup truck on a state bid contract. What I normally do is on the pickup trucks and the one-ton dump trucks, we always have gone with a 2-year program. First, we wait 2 years, we buy one, and pay for it within 2 years on Ford credit, motor credit. This year, what we propose to do is take half the money out of my budget for 2012, and half the money out of my budget at the beginning of 2013 to pay for the truck. And Van Bortle Ford, who holds the contract, will do that without going through the Ford credit, and will save the interest on it. They're willing to split the payment, so that's why I kind of held off to do this in December. It's a little over $25,000. I don't have the exact
It's
figure.
$25,292.03.
Which the money is in the equipment budget at this point for that. That's replacing a 15-year-old truck, 98 Chevy. It's got a sander on it now, the sander we transferred to the new truck. Because we changed all the sanders to stainless steel, so we don't have to buy them like we used to.
The smaller plow you use for the development?
Yeah, well, it runs for the plow. This is for all the town properties and regular plow route up in Tilson, both sides of Tilson. Also to go along with that, and I always bid out on these because I found that I can get a cheaper bidding out on the snow plow. We use Boss snow plows on all the trucks. It's cheaper to bid out onto it than it is to take it on a state bid. So I got 3 quotes from 3 different vendors. Albany Avenue Garage being the lowest at $4,050, I believe.
Yep.
So I recommend that we go with that. And that's going to be coming out of my snow budget because we had such a mild winter last year. So I can, I'll take the money out. Excuse me?
So what do you need it for?
Well, heck knows what's going to happen this year. I hope it's like last year.
The car you're going to be looking to sell, the old one?
The old ones will go on auction international. Matter of fact, I got 71 Mack tank truck that's going to be going up. I have an old 92 international cab and chassis. This pickup truck will go up. And Terry's police car when he gets it.
What do you use for 71? I'm sorry.
That's right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say, the plow will be taken off and sold separately, or it's going to go?
No, stay with the truck. It'll go as a set. It's an old diamond plow from 1998.
All right.
It's pretty well played out.
Has to stay with that truck, it probably won't fit most of them.
Yeah, you can transfer it to the new one.
That tank truck,
Excuse me?
this the gray Chevy?
The blue one, the one that Sean's got.
This is for the parking
The
lot.
blue 98.
Yeah, Mike's old truck.
Yeah, it's been,
What do you use the tank truck for, that 71?
when we sweep roads,
When you what?
when we sweep roads, we use it. Flushing culvert pipes.
So what will you use in place of that?
We already put another truck together,
Oh, you did?
and we're putting a 1,000 or 1,200 gallon plastic tank on it. And that truck's ready, well, we've been using it. So I put a new nut body onto it.
That's what we're using our fracking brine.
Oh, don't start
Good.
that. Thanks a lot. Anybody that thinks that it's just plain salt and water, if we ever get to that point, salt and water. But anyway, that's what, the truck's a 71, it's leaking like a sieve. And even DOT pulled us over one day and thought they had a truck with a gas leak.
Oh, really?
It says water on it, you know.
Yeah. What is that website again, Carl, that you use?
Excuse me?
What's that website again that you use?
Auctions International, and anybody can go on that, they have all kinds of equipment. Now it's, you'd be surprised what's on that, homeowners can buy it, or, you know. Anything else?
Just-
If everybody's okay with that, I'm going to do the resolutions right now for these. Resolution 12-2012-2, resolution purchase of highway equipment 2012 Ford F-350 four-wheel drive pickup truck, whereas the town of Rosendale Highway Department is looking for a new Ford F-350 pickup truck to replace the old 1988 Chevy truck, which has become too costly at this time to keep and repair. And whereas the town highway superintendent, Carl Kornbeck, has submitted attached vehicle proposal from Van Bortle Ford Incorporated located in Victor, New York. And whereas said truck would be purchased under New York State bid contract 2191 PFPC 65030, item number 93-A, at a cost of $25,292.03, with $15,000 down. And whereas the Highway Superintendent Carl Hornbeck has recommended that said quote be accepted, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Rosendale hereby accepts the aforementioned quote and authorizes the purchase of said equipment from the aforementioned vendor. And be it further resolved that the cost of thereof the said equipment is authorized an expenditure from the Rosendale Highway Department annual equipment budget from equipment line number DA 5130.2.
Okay, I just want to draw attention that the name of the company that it's being purchased from is Van Bortel, not Van.
Oh.
It's
Van?
Van, B-O-R-T-E-L.
Did I have to hold on?
Well, I don't
No,
know.
I think
maybe
when
Jill did.
the resolution was,
It says Van Bortel on both pages, so it's a B
it's big.
with a B, Van Bortel. Okay, so noted, thank you.
Good catch. Gold Road, Councilman Gallagher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Green?
Yes.
Councilman Hassett?
Yes.
Councilman Ryan?
Yes.
Supervisor?
And Resolution 12, 2012, number 3, purchase of 8-foot Boss snowplow. Whereas the town of Rosendale has a need for a new 8-foot Boss snowplow attached to recently purchased pickup truck, specifically the 2012 Ford F-350 in the Highway Department fleet. And whereas the town highway superintendent has standardized all plow equipment on small trucks by dealing only in Boss equipment for purposes of best price, quality, and adaptability for our fleet. And whereas 3 quotes were received for said equipment, and whereas Albany Avenue Garage is the sole provider of such equipment in our area. Wait a minute, that's not right. I'm going to cross that one out, okay?
It's not sold.
No. Whereas the price for said plow package is $4,050 from Albany Avenue Garage in Kingston, New York. And whereas the funds for this will be taken out of snow removal line item DA 5142.4. Now therefore be resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Rosendale hereby authorize the purchase of said equipment from the aforementioned provider. And that should say December 5th, 2012 instead of the 12th.
No second.
Gold Road, Councilman Gallagher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Green?
Yes.
Councilman Hassett?
Yes.
Councilman Ryan?
Yes.
Supervisor?
Yes.
I know you people are busy, and I thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay.
Hey, Carl.
Yes.
See you later.
There's been a proposal from the Economic Development Commission, and Tim Morrison's been helping them come up with a parking fee plan and this is quite a lengthy document. I kind of recommend that we take a look at it and then have Tim come back on next Wednesday, if that's okay?
Yeah, that's good. Let me just give a quick preface. Gallagher told me I only have minutes, so it won't be
All right.
long.
30 seconds.
And I've already used some.
Somebody else used up your minute, that's the problem.
Just to let people know, this is not related at all to the previous parking discussions we had in the rail trail. This is, you may recall that it's probably close to 10 years ago now, there was a group put together to look at the issues of parking in town. And that group put together a proposal for the planning board to assign parking waivers. And that never came to fruition because there were some holes in that plan as opposed that mostly as how do we collect these fees. And so about 2 years ago I volunteered to look at that, and the previous administration assigned somebody to work with me on it, and that just never happened. And so earlier this year, the Economic Development Commission was asked to look at this, and the chair of that, Dennis Kay, asked me if I would work with them. And so this is a proposal that the commission has put together. We did a lot of research. This is not a new problem. I mean, a lot of municipalities face the same issues. And there's been a lot of, there are a lot of documents, planning documents, and studies done by various municipalities in how to go about doing this. Instead of parking waivers, it's generally called in lieu of parking fee parking. So there's two parts to what I gave Jean to hand out. The first is an overview of the proposal, and then the second part is the proposed code. And as Jean said, I think it'd be valuable for you to go through, look at it, and I'm sure it will spawn some questions and comments, and then we can talk about those things specifically. Okay?
Thank you.
You're very
Tim,
welcome.
Long time coming.
Dennis, I know it was a lot of work.
A lot of work. And it
Well, we
looks
appreciate
extremely
Tim's
well
help, it's
organized and
valuable.
clear. Thank you.
He had already dealt with the issue, as he said, last year, a couple of years ago.
I have referred it to Mary Lou for, to look over and just give us some comments on it.
Yeah, and I should have added, the planning board has looked at this, and Dave Plant, the consultant for the planning board, has reviewed this, and his comments have been incorporated into it. That actually happened last May. I asked the town building department and code enforcement officer to review it, and that review hasn't happened.
Okay.
So,
And before we do anything, we can still have.
Yeah, we're just at the beginning of, I mean, we need to review it.
it's important.
I think that it's a lengthy document, so I think the board should review it and come back with any questions on that.
So we're over his time on the speaking, back to 6 pages.
So the next thing is Evolution Technologies. There's a contract here. I'm going to put it off till next week. We'll do this next week if you guys are okay with that. It's basically the same contract. He's not asking for any raise. And Silas has been a big help to the town with building computer things. I think it's pretty reasonable. The next thing is, will also be put off till next week, but it's just so you know, it's a proposal for a cameras for the High Falls water treatment, treatment plant there. Terry's requested that there be cameras there, and Marbletown's agreed also. So our resolution will reflect that both boards approve it, and there was some money left over from the budget, and that's what they're using the money for. And Cross Point was the least expensive of all three bids, so they would be the ones that we would choose. But we'll do the resolution next week. Next is the two resolutions for the trip to Association of Towns. Mr. Gallagher will be the alternate. Okay. And we'll put that off to next week also. And then you'll notice that in the resolution for travel allowance, I'm going to do the same thing we did last year, which is add the travel amount of $50 because we know that that's approximately what it costs to take a round trip with the bus.
You just stay in your closet again?
Yeah. God.
And I'm going to be researching some less expensive hotels. We saved about $4,000 last year for doing that, so we'll do that again. And and rather than staying at a hotel. they
We're just staying 2 nights unless you're a delegate and going to a, okay.
Sunday night, Monday night. Yeah.
Good.
Constantine,
Um,
17.
The next thing on the agenda, quite lengthy, but I'd like to
Read it.
huh?
Read it when you got time.
Well, I'd like to point out that the county legislators did a resolution urging the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to expedite and complete the process necessary to advance the project of Williams Lake. Resolution number 272, which was done November 13th on 2012. Referred to the economic development, it was referred by the Economic Development and Tourism Committee. And it's whereas Ulster County is part of both the Hudson Valley and Catskills regions, and whereas both of these regions are dependent on environmental-based tourism, whereas the people of Ulster County are inherently good stewards of the environment, as we have chosen to make our home in this part of New York State, and whereas the Williams Lake Resort is a well-known resort which once hosted thousands of families throughout the year and was a hub of tourism in the Rosendale area. And whereas in 2007, Hudson River Valley Resorts proposed a plan with the support of the longtime operator of Williams Lake, Anita Peck, herself a longtime leader in hospitality in Ulster County, well respected for the jobs she created, and whereas since 2007, Hudson River Valley Resorts has been diligently proceeding to establish a resort at Williams Lake, the project, and whereas the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation substantially delayed the project by taking 7 months to determine simply who the lead agency would be under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And whereas in August 2012, this legislative body has learned that the New York State DEC's Region 3 office unnecessarily delayed the project further after requesting documents that the office could have requested long ago. And whereas the project would create substantial economic benefits and is supported by the supervisor of the town of Rosendale. And whereas the project developers estimate the project would, among other things, create over 1,300 construction-related jobs over the anticipated 10-year build-out of the project. And whereas this legislative body is committed to the employment of every Ulster County resident needing a job, and whereas the greater than 9% unemployment rate faced by Ulster County residents is found by this legislative body to be too high, and unnecessarily too high in part because of the substantial amount of tourism jobs that could and should be created through projects such as the project at Williams Lake. And whereas the project anticipates building a much-needed, high-quality 130-room hotel, which would be an asset not only to Rosendale but to families who wish to visit, for example, Scenic, Newport, and other regional attractions. And whereas the project would open up a now-closed section of rail trail, which would be enjoyed by the public at large. And whereas the project would create significant tax ratables for the county of Ulster and local schools. And whereas the substantial unfunded mandates which every taxpayer in Ulster County pays for would be lessened with the $1.9 million in anticipated tax revenue associated with this project would come along to Ulster County. And whereas the project has been planned in a manner which actually directs tourism into downtown Rosendale instead of keeping tourists and property owners on premises for shopping. And whereas this time, the New York State DEC is developing 6 draft permits associated with the project. There are 3 of which were accepted as complete, and the other 3 of which do not appear to be moving forward in a reasonably acceptable timeline for the county of Ulster. Now therefore be resolved that this legislative body calls upon the New York State DEC to expedite and complete rather than delay the review and processing of all draft permits, so that the draft permits can be advanced to the necessary public comment period, and to issue as soon as possible any required findings so that the site plan application can start to be processed before the Town of Rosendale Planning Board, and be further resolved that the legislative body hereby asks that the New York State DEC provide timely, legal, and fair reviews of projects of importance to Ulster County, including the project at Williams Lake, and be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be transmitted to Governor Andrew Cuomo, DEC Commissioner Joe Martins, Town of Rosendale Supervisor Gene Walsh, Williams Lake owner Anita Peck, Hudson River Resorts Project Manager Tim Allred, and the representatives of Ulster County and the New York State Legislature, and moves its adoption. This was adopted by the following vote, ayes 22, no 0, 1 absent. Passed Committee Economic Development Tourism on October 31st, 2012. Financial impact none. So, there you go. I think it's, yes, but I think it's important to show that this is a project that's supported by every legislator in the county, and we're ready to move on the parts that the town of Rosendale needs to do, and we urge the DEC to move forward and get their work completed.
I would like to call Lily Janeway, and this is strong language to say that it was substantially delayed as if it was an intentional delay. So between now and next week, I would like to just hear the DEC side of this.
Absolutely, we're welcome to do that.
I will do that, thank you, and I'll let you know what they say.
We have a resolution for new e-waste because the transfer station lost their electronic waste provider. They went out of business. So we're going to do this tonight because she's without anybody right now. So that's resolution 2012. Is that 4? 4. Authorizing agreement with e-waste, whereas the town of Rosendale Transfer Station finds it necessary to contract for professional services in regards to waste disposal from time to time. And whereas the town of Rosendale Transfer Station has identified a need for electronics recycling at their facility and has researched professional companies which provide such